we've reached halftime here in the early portion of Week 15 of the 2020 season. Liz, interesting first half for most of these games here. I know we're going to talk Bears-Vikings in a little bit, but luckily we don't have too many major injuries to discuss. I know Stephon Gilmore of the New England Patriots, Defensive Player of the Year last year, he left. That did look like it could be pretty tough. Other than that, just a couple of guys, big-name players at that, hobbling around a little bit, but nothing too concerning at this point.
No, I mean, you mentioned big-name players hobbling around. DK Metcalf grabbed his leg, went off, came back, obviously, and we're seeing it in some, I don't know if this is HD or ZD, some crazy level of camera work, some Michael Bay shot matchup here in Seattle. So we're seeing him in super high def. And then who else? Russell Gage had his ribs, I believe, worked on for a little bit, but he came back and then promptly almost got picked off in the end zone. Pass from Matt Ryan, obviously. So no, I don't think AJ Brown hobbling around, but that's not necessarily anything new.
Yeah, I'm not so sure A.J. Brown looks like he's 100% to me, but Corey Davis was 100% involved on a 75-yard deep touchdown. That guy's going to get himself the bag this offseason. We love to see that. I think he's always been a little too harshly criticized because he was drafted so high, but he's a pretty solid player, having a good year this year. John Bunting in the chat room chimes in too with Marvin Jones, potentially, a guy, like I say on FFL, that I feel like I never get right. I'm always on him when he does nothing. I'm off him when he does something. Well, he's doing things today. As John says, 7 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown just might win him a spot into his fantasy championship. If you've got some stuff in the chat room, let us know what's tilting you, what's going right for your teams, and if you got start-sit questions, hit us up there. But, Liz, let's jump into this Bears-Vikings game. I know you're all in on the Mitchell Trubisky redemption storyline. I mean, listen, they're using this guy as like a battering ram around there near the goal line. Is this? I mean, look, it's at least worth saying that this offense has looked much more competent of late. Currently, up 10 points on the Minnesota Vikings heading into halftime here.
Now, I know you're a Star Wars guy, Matt, so I'm going to drop a little, especially on the heels of an incredible Mandalorian run here, a little ref. It's a trap. The Calamari and Akbar let us know this. This is the worst thing that Chicago. I understand that 2020 has required that we live in the moment, and there is something really beautiful about that. However, this is not great. You know what this does for the entire offseason? If Mitch Trubisky next week got Jacksonville, or if he closes out solid, we have to survive an entire offseason. A 21 where hope is beginning to trickle in, right? We have to survive. No changes. Can Mitch Trubisky do it? Was Bill laser the answer? I don't want it. Just let him tank and let's close the chapter and open a new one. That's what we need in 2021, not more running it back stuff.
Yeah, I hear you. It is a little concerning. I feel like for Bears fans, it's almost like, let's just let him have this nice ride, but then at the end of it, gallop off into the sunset, go be like, have a weird career as a mercurial backup quarterback like Blake Bortles. This is a guy, Blake Bortles, like he had this sort of same run. The good news is though, Liz, he doesn't have a contract for next year because they declined his 5th-year option. So actually, if they wanted to retain Trubisky, they'd have to give him an extension, which I don't know. That's even more concerning. So hopefully the decision has already been made in Chicago to let this thing play out. But for the time being, though, I feel like we do have to be a little grateful as selfish fantasy players that he's having this run right now, because at least like Montgomery scores again. Robinson leads the team in receiving yards. Trubisky's at least for our selfish purposes coming through, and that must be some sort of silver lining.
Sure, and I love seeing Darnell Mooney come on more. Like there was some hype, at the top of the season, a nice speed element for this offense. All of that is great. We can be grateful for the fantasy pieces attached to the right now on-ish Mitch Trubisky. But I will not sit through an entire offseason of like, he's going through his progressions a little bit faster. Maybe things are clicking. Maybe we can live through that. No. But thank you, David Montgomery.
Let's hope
we talked about this. You made a good point last week about David Montgomery down the stretch, and I think I was a little conservative in the first half of last week's game, saying, probably like top 15-ish. I was too conservative. I think he's a top 10 play from here on out.
Yeah, I think he's like RB8 on the season, so those season end numbers are going to look good. And to be fair to him too, I think he's playing better. Like I think he looks more decisive. Like he's hitting holes that are actually there. So again, all things have been a little bit more improved by just having someone in Trubisky that can move around. But that's enough on Bears football. Let's jump into the chat room here real quick because we've got a couple of start-sit questions. Actually, two that are around Jalen Hurts. Kevin from Facebook wants to know, he's got a decent lead already, so that's good to keep that in mind. We have so many games already through here in Week 15. We can judge these sort of situations. Kevin has a decent lead, so he wants to know, should he play Jared Goff or Jalen Hurts at quarterback later on?
I mean, I want to stay away from Jared Goff because if we have learned one thing from Sean McVay over this season is that he would prefer to lean on the defense and that backfield. Against the Jets. I am not entirely sure Jared Goff is going to have to do anything, and I don't think that Sean McVay wants to put him in a situation to make mistakes that he doesn't need to make, especially given the playoff picture in the NFC West. So I would say you're not going to get a lot out of Jared Goff. If you waited this long to start Cam Akers, congratulations. This has been paying off for you down the stretch here. Let that be what you're looking for. And I would lean towards Hurts. I do think, we talked a lot about the fact that there is now tape on him on FFL, and that's a great point. However, the Cardinals defense has allowed the 6th or 7th most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. We know what this guy was in Oklahoma. We know what he was last week. So I think, especially, we didn't talk about this at all. Like, the Philadelphia Eagles secondary is completely banged up. Now, you would think, okay, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, like, that's a smash. But also that means that Hurts is going to have to put the ball in the air a little bit more. Is he going to make more mistakes than last week? Probably. But it's still more opportunities. So I'm going to lean towards Hurts absolutely in this one because I think there's a chasing of points that's going to be with his arms and his legs happening.
I like that call. And look, you're asking for safety here because you've already got the lead. I think that there's probably some element of safety with Jared Goff because of the matchup, but I think Hurts presents the best ceiling and floor option. I mean, this guy had 100 yards rushing last week. There's going to be a rushing-based floor with this guy, so I think you're safe playing him either way. And I love your point about Cam Akers. Like, if you're a Cam Akers talent truther, sure, you can take your victory lap. But the only people in fantasy who should be taking Cam Akers' victory laps are the ones that picked him up off the waiver wire, not the folks who were touting him as like a 5th-round pick in drafts this year. Give me a break. That was a bad call no matter what he does here to end the year. But nevertheless, it's good to see. Another Jalen Hurts question. This one comes in from Rocky, who mentions, would you play Jalen Hurts over Big Ben or Drew Brees? I would play Jalen Hurts over Big Ben for sure. Just don't love the way that Steelers offense is operating right now. And I think I'd probably play him over Brees too, just because we kind of talked about this in FFL. We expect this to be a floor game for Drew Brees. So if you need that ceiling, I feel like Hurts is the best option of the three.
I would start him over Drew Brees. I would not start him over Big Ben. I am convinced that this is an opportunity. I mean, you mentioned the motivational personality that Tomlin is. I think that this is a smash spot against a division rival in prime time that is completely generous for the entire Steelers offense to get back on track after 2 weeks they'd like to put very much behind them. So I am feeling Big Ben here a little bit, but like I said on FFL, they're back-to-back Hurts and Ben in my rankings. So, throw a dart whichever way your gut is leaning.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that they're both very close in my rankings as well. I don't think you could really go wrong with either option. The matchup is great for Big Ben. I would love to see. I mean, just please don't make me sit through another 20-point outing for the Steelers where they just matriculate the way down the field, all the short passes. It's a tough watch. Rocky also points out that that the 49ers, you could use more than one running back. You could use both of these guys because Jeff Wilson's someone that a lot of folks are chirping about in the chat right now. Not a great start for him. 5 carries, 17 yards. Raheem Mostert's looked surprising to me. I didn't think Mostert would come out and run real well here, but 67 yards, 13 carries, 5.2 yards per carry. Brandon Ayuk scores the touchdown. Thank God, since we mentioned him 55 times on FFL this morning. But this is an interesting game so far for the Cowboys, who got off to a quick 14-0 lead. The 49ers have battled back. It's now 14-17. Dallas is up on them in their big fancy stadium there down there in Dallas. But Look, I feel like this is in a weird way. This game is all about like next year. Jared made that point on FFL too. Like these are two teams that should have been good, didn't quite happen. I was at least happy to see Brandon Ayuk score, but also Michael Gallup get that early touchdown as well, and Pollard in the backfield for Dallas instead of Zeke. Honestly, Pollard has looked pretty good so far. He has one touchdown rushing so far on the day. He's also been very involved as a receiver with 5 catches for 51 yards.
I think Tony Pollard, if you're looking at him and comparing him to Ezekiel Elliott, well, Elliott continues to get the volume, but also, like, let's think about the contract situation here. Of course, he's going to get the volume if he's a scratch this week because of the calf injury. Pollard has been the better of the two backs just from an eye perspective, right? From watching the games, you can tell that he's had, and you know, Andy made this point, he's got the fresher legs. It's week 15. Dudes is tired. And so Pollard has been frustratingly saved for this moment. I would say, you mentioned Mostert, and you're right, volume is certainly leaning into his favor. Those shenanigans are happening, but he also hasn't been terribly effective in the red area of the field against this Dallas defense that we've seen be run all over. So I'm wondering.
Dallas made a bunch of stops down there at the goal line. I was not expecting that, but they were rock solid after like 2 weeks ago to get barreled over by Baltimore.
So maybe there's a shift with those shenanigans in the second half, and Jeff Wilson, who we know is a goal line goblin, can actually get some run here. So I haven't given up on Wilson just yet.
Yeah, I hear you. Don't get too panicked. It's still just the first half. I had somebody within like 10 minutes of kickoff hit me with the like Judge Judy tapping her watch meme where GIF and related to Brandon Ayuk. I'm like, freaking relax. This is already a stressful enough hobby. You don't need to stress about things right away. At least let the first quarter get through. Stacy
and let the Dallas Cowboys defense get tired. We know they're going to be gassed by the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah, Leighton Vander Esch made like one play. Okay, so like it'll be all right. Your hopes and dreams will be accomplished. Stacy wants to say, can we talk about DK Metcalf? She's getting smoked right now. Russell is killing the game right now. You know, he threw a touchdown to Jacob Hollister, also threw a touchdown that was called back because he was out of bounds to Freddie Swaim. I'm like, man, I remember the happy days when this was all just DK and all just Tyler Lockett. This Seattle team has not been as fun in the second half of the year. I will say that because I've got like Lockett on every fantasy team. And I've got a few DK Metcalf teams as well. But nevertheless, what else are you watching here is in the second half of these games going forward into week 15? There's still plenty of fun games left, especially good primetime games, obviously. At least I'm interested to watch the Browns on Sunday Night Football, which is something I didn't expect to be saying.
I think the Browns are an interesting watch because we want to see, right, we're anticipating that the Giants are not going to be as formidable of a matchup, right? Daniel Jones is not in. You've got Colt McCoy. So you would imagine that the Browns could, as you said earlier, I loved it, the way you phrased it, control this game. But also the secondary in New York is all sorts of banged up. So how tempting would it be for Baker Mayfield, after he's finding a rhythm, to lean into that momentum? He's got Jarvis Landry. The slot corner for the Giants is out. There's no Bradbury. Higgins, who he's had rapport with forever.
Oh, yes.
Now, like, I'm wondering if, like, Stefanski might be like, this is the moment, because we can and because we want to build confidence, take off the training wheels for a series or two and put up some points.
And Baker's played pretty well on balance of late. I think if you're still focused on some of the mistakes he made against like Baltimore and Pittsburgh in the early part of this season, I feel like you're kind of missing the boat, because right now, actually over the last 3 weeks, he's top 5 in EPA per play among quarterbacks. Like, he's adding value to this offense. And sure, some of that is the system, no doubt about it. But like, I feel as if at this point, Mayfield he's not going to ever be the quarterback. And we'll probably talk about this more in depth as the week goes on, and of course as their playoff picture comes into focus. But like, I think Mayfield, he's never going to be number 1 overall pick type of quarterback, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if he levels out as a Kirk Cousins type of guy And we know Kirk Cousins can put up big numbers, maybe not in primetime games, but can put up big numbers on occasion. I feel like that's the version of this offense that's sort of coming into focus right now.
I mean, it's the perfect comp that you're making, also given the connective tissue between those two quarterbacks of one Kevin Stefanski.
Made me think of it. Yeah, I love it. Mr. Scampers adds one comment on YouTube. Haskins is so bad. They started Terry McLaurin over Corey Davis, and they're losing badly to their wife because of it. But you know what? That's okay. Sometimes a little inner household battle in fantasy football. I mean, that doesn't happen in my household, but sometimes that can be good. Maybe you can bond over this Dwayne Haskins terribleness, and that's what it really is all about, Liz. Family-focused fun during the holiday seasons at the end of this very strange year.
I don't disagree with that. And I think, Ron Rivera might be in a position where he does not want to see this team lose, especially given the hellscape that is the NFC East and all of the tumult that he personally and professionally has endured this season. But also in the back of his head might be like, I told you so.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. He's probably like, okay, you know what, Alex, thanks for missing this game. Come back next week. And I appreciate you for giving me 1 week of folks seeing Dwayne Haskins play bad, so I don't have to get any more questions about that. I don't know what Ron Rivera wants to do in that quarterback situation next year, but he's clearly living in the moment, as we all should. Enjoy the second half of these games. Good luck to all of your fantasy teams out there. It's week 15, folks. It's time to make that final push to get that championship so that we can all feel a little bit better about ourselves going forward. Good luck and enjoy the rest of the games.